The special City Council meeting of May 19th, 2025. Members of the public are invited to attend in-person meetings in council chambers. Public access is also available by telephone by using the call-in numbers posted on the meeting agenda. Tonight's meeting will be broadcast on the city's YouTube channel online. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Mayor Leidy.
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Lukeman Hiramasa.
Here.
Councilmember Burns.
Here.
Councilmember Jaramillo.
Here.
Councilmember Kondo.
Here.
Councilmember Roper.
Here.
Councilmember Goff.
Here.
Councilmember Nowicki will be absent, and Councilmember Walker.
Here.
Thank you. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Acting City Manager Loveland, are there any responses to resident inquiry?
Nothing this evening, Mayor.
Thank you. Are there any additions or deletions to tonight's agenda? I don't think so. Great. Public invited to be heard. This is an opportunity for public comment on any item not set for public hearing. Statements are limited to 5 minutes per speaker. Statements must be related to city business and limited to matters of community interest. Has anyone signed up to speak to council tonight?
They have not.
Is there anyone in the audience that did not sign up that would like to speak to council? Okay. Well, I am excited we have a guest, so I'm going to ask council to join me. We have a proclamation, so if you could join me down front, that would be great. All right, I'm going to invite Kathy Kelly to come on up. Kathy serves on the Wear Orange Committee as part of the Colorado Moms Demand Action for Gun Sense in America organization, so thank you. And I left the proclamation on my desk. Can you reach it? Anybody? Ah. Perfect. Sorry about that. Welcome. Nice to see you. Need my glasses. Okay. Whereas every day in the United States, over 125 people are killed and more than 260 are wounded by gun violence, with gun homicides disproportionately affecting communities in major cities. And whereas Colorado experiences nearly 1,000 gun-related deaths annually, costing the state an estimated $11.7 billion each year, of which $156.1 million is paid by taxpayers, and giving Colorado the 21st highest rate of gun deaths in the United States. And whereas elected officials, local leaders, and law enforcement officers have a critical role in advancing evidence-based solutions to prevent gun violence and protect public safety, while supporting the constitutional rights of responsible gun owners. And whereas National Gun Violence Awareness Day was inspired by the life of Hadia, sorry, I've said that a few times, I should know it by now. Hadia Pendleton, a 15-year-old who was tragically killed by gun violence and whose friends chose the color orange, a color that symbolizes the value of human life, to honor her and raise awareness. And whereas individuals across the country wear orange on the first Friday in June to honor victims and survivors of gun violence and show their commitment to reducing firearm-related harm. And whereas the City of Northglenn joins cities nationwide in renewing its commitment to community safety, responsible gun ownership, and honoring all those whose lives have been impacted by gun violence. Now, therefore, I, Meredith Leidy, Mayor of the City of Northglenn, Colorado, do hereby proclaim June 6th, 2025 as National Gun Violence Awareness Day in the city of North Glen, and encourage all residents to support efforts to prevent the tragic effects of gun violence and to protect the value of every human life. Dated at North Glen, Colorado, this 19th day of May, 2025. So this is for you, but it's also just an honor to have you back. So if you'd like to share some more thoughts, the mic is yours.
Thank you. And Mayor Lady and City Council, I would like to thank you for this particular proclamation. In these times where there is division in our country, it is nice to see that people can come together and recognize that gun violence is affecting every one of us, whether it's a homicide, a suicide, mass shooting, or accidental shooting. So thank you for recognizing that and the impact, not just on the victims, but on the survivors and those of us who advocate for gun violence prevention. I appreciate that you mentioned Hadia Pendleton. She was a young woman who was in the prime of her life and just one of the many victims who have experienced gun violence that we will always remember. And each year in the United States, more than 45,000 people die from gun violence. And in Colorado, as the mayor said, there are 14 gun deaths for every 1,000 people. 4.6 million children live in the United States in homes with guns that are unlocked and loaded. This sets up our society for a dangerous situation. Anyone who's ever had a child is more than aware of the silly things, whether it's a fire truck that goes in the trash or in the toilet, in my case, or some of the other things. But having a gun that can cause irreparable harm is so damaging. So we ask everyone to take advantage of the Wear Orange call on June 6th to take a look at your own weapons and make sure that they're stored securely and keep your family safe. In Colorado, it is now the law that in your home and in your car, you are required to keep your guns safely stored in a gun storage device. So please make sure that you're doing that. And on June 6th, remember the victims and survivors of gun violence in the United States. Thank you.
Do you want to? You're in a good spot, and everybody else moves that way a little. I like that in the picture. Okay. All right, smile, keep going. All right, one of those should work. Thank you. Thank you. Appreciate everything you're doing. We'll probably put it up on that Friday on our social media. Okay. Thank you.
Okay, we have a presentation tonight. Come on down, the Colorado 250-150 Commemoration. I know there's a fancier way to say that, and we'll let our guest do that for us. Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you, Mayor, for inviting me to present. It's a pleasure to be here. My name is Katie Roach. I'm the program director for the America 250 Colorado 150 Commission, which is housed at History Colorado and representative of a variety of constituencies and state agencies throughout Colorado, which I'll get into in just a moment. But this fun word that Mayor Leidy just mentioned is the sesquisemiquincentennial. If anyone is feeling bold and would like to try to say it, it is essentially our fun nomenclature in calling out the 250th anniversary of the nation, which is the semiquincentennial, and Colorado's 150th anniversary, which is the sesquicentennial, which surprisingly enough gives me more trouble than the sesquisemiquincentennial. For some reason, that one just rolls off the tongue. So I just wanted to come here tonight and talk a little bit about what the opportunity is for this around communities in Colorado, but really to spend some time talking about the invitation that this presents for communities around the state in coming together for a joint purpose. Number one, to find ways to commemorate our shared history here in Colorado. We are very lucky that this is housed at History Colorado. I get to very routinely lean on the expertise of my colleagues there, whether they are experts in taking of oral histories, of facilitating community conversations, and on exhibitions that focus not only on our history here in the West, but on American history as well. So in addition to that point of commemorating our shared history, what commissioners very much believe is that this is an opportunity to come together and to find unity. I know our previous guest mentioned that we certainly are in times where we feel politically divided, but commissioners did do quite a deep dive into what happened in 1976 for the centennial bicentennial. I sadly don't remember it. I wasn't quite born yet. Luckily, that wasn't a requisition or a requirement of my position. But when we talked to communities around the state, when we talked to commissioners themselves who remembered it, and when we did some research into what happened 50 years ago, what we found is that communities very much felt and remembered this as a moment to come together. It is really quite inspiring. We talked to people who said, I remember coming to community barbecues and community potlucks, and I remember coming together with my neighbors and painting the fire hydrants red, white, and blue. And so I kid you not when I mentioned that that was a result of a 4-hour conversation with commissioners when they did some strategic planning into why this was important. And ultimately what they said is it's not one or the other. We do have some states and neighbors that we are very closely working with who have said we just really want to only focus on commemoration. And some states have said we're only doing the celebration piece of this. We really believe here in Colorado that this is a joint opportunity and we can't truly have one without the other. I do want to mention that we have used a couple of words here, celebrate and commemorate. I want to mention specifically that celebrate didn't come about lightly. We use that word really intentionally. We do certainly acknowledge, especially with History Colorado being our home and doing such incredible work with communities in the state who do recognize that there have been moments in our past and even currently that are hard to reckon with. That is that moment where we do feel that we are commemorating our shared history. However, we do think that this is an opportunity for communities to come together to celebrate our great state, to celebrate our neighbors and communities, and also we do get to brag just a little bit that we are here in Colorado, and we simply get to look out any given window at any given moment, and we get to be pretty lucky and feel incredibly blessed that we are here. So with that, I'm going to tell just a little bit about the background of the commission and what it is we are doing, and then spend a little bit of time on what the opportunity is and what some of the mechanisms are that you really can activate this throughout your communities. The commission itself was created with bipartisan support in 2022. Governor Polis signed that piece of legislation into law in May of that year. Commissioners began meeting for the first time later in 2022. I joined this effort in very early 2023. And since then, we have really been doing quite a number of community outreach sessions. I have been in every region of the state more than once, more than 3 times in many cases, having community meetings, talking to people, inviting them to participate. Certainly, framing this around, we would like for communities to get involved, but in the way that is right for you. There's no one-stop shop way to do this. We're very proud of that here. I know we have some colleagues on the Eastern Coast who, have laid out a very specific set of rules for communities to get involved. You have to be, feeding into one of the local commissions or one of the local committees. You have to be officially sanctioned. We just knew immediately that was not going to work the same way out west. And so, what works in Durango may not work in La Junta, may not work in North Glen. And so we've really set up a system of ways in which communities can get involved here. Part of that is with our signature initiatives, which I'll talk about in just a moment. But I do want to acknowledge that Senate Bill 2022-11 is our founding piece of legislation, and that bit on the side on the right there that I will read out loud for those maybe who listening who need it, does specifically state that the Commission will identify, celebrate, and build knowledge around the history of Black communities, Indigenous communities, communities of color, women, and people with disabilities in the history and development of the United States and the state of Colorado. And I think this is incredibly important, including the history that predates the founding of both nation and state. With that, the makeup of our commission is really directly tied to this. I'm very proud to say that our commission represents various state agencies, but also diverse communities in Colorado. So Colorado Tourism Office is represented, History Colorado, the Department of Education, but we also have commissioners who are representing Colorado's Black community, the Latino, Chicano, and Hispano communities, Asian American communities. We also have commissioners who are representing, and I certainly didn't list them all, and I can give you details on that later, but we have commissioners who are representing philanthropic communities, the business community. We have commissioners representing cultural organizations throughout Colorado, so that we had systems in place in which we can really do deep outreach to those communities, but also receive feedback up from those communities. And with that, we also are very lucky that we can rely on a statewide network of advisory panel members. Our legislation stated that we needed to have statewide input on this, and that's also something that is pretty unique to Colorado. We have at least one advisory panel representative per region. If you're not familiar with these are Colorado Tourism's regional maps. This is what we use. But for example, we have folks who represent us who are former state legislators, museum directors, local educators, folks who are serving in their local tourism offices and representing their destination marketing organizations, and so we really, working together with those groups of people, both commissioners and advisory panel members, do feel that we have created an incredible network of outreach, but also a really phenomenal way to receive feedback on all of these signature initiatives that I'll spend just a few moments talking about. Why it's especially important to me that we have this advisory panel is that these signature initiatives will create a pretty amazing opportunity for communities to get involved, whether it is specifically with these or whether they already have programs in place that layer into these. And so, again, nodding back to the idea that we had, this idea of commemorate and celebrate working jointly, our signature initiatives are very much designed to do both of those things. I'll briefly describe each one of them. I'm happy to go into detail on all or any of these after I'm done with slides here, and I promise, in just a few minutes. So the Passport program, we recently announced a partnership with United Airlines on this. We were extremely thrilled by the Passport program. Colorado Tourism Office is our major state agency partner. What we want to do is encourage people to get out and about in Colorado. There are certainly places that you have always wanted to go where you never have had the opportunity to go. I grew up in Longmont. Somehow, magically, my parents never took us to Mesa Verde. I'm now old enough where I can't blame them for that anymore, but I still do. It's my fault entirely. But it's a great reason for me to get out and about in 2026 to visit that place that I have heard so much about but never seen myself. 14er Climb, we are mounting an effort to get climbing teams to the top of each of our peaks that are publicly accessible, hopefully on July 4th, 2026, depending on what the Department of Outdoor Rec and the Department of Natural Resources is able to help us manage on that. That actually is a program that happened in 1976, and we're extremely excited to resurrect that. A Portrait of Colorado at 150. This is an oral history project. My colleagues at History Colorado are going to be embarking on creating and finding 150 stories that are indicative of Colorado and who we have been, who we want to be. But in addition to that, we know that communities around the state have their own oral history programs planned. And so for that, we are creating a toolkit that will be freely accessible to any community, that will lay out certain standards that History Colorado likes to see, so that if those communities would like to see those end up in the History Colorado permanent collection, that is an option. And statewide drone shows. Dick Monfort, one of our commissioners, was extremely excited about these drone shows, and we are hopeful to bring 40 to 60 drone shows as a capstone piece to a number of festivals and events that happen throughout the state. The goal in that is that we identify those very unique regional festivals that already happen, that already have a draw, and that we can help promote tourism even further to those by providing this extra special piece. Commemorating our shared history. History Colorado is mounting a major exhibition on American history in which we have close to 50 objects indicative of moments in American history in which we were at a crossroads, ranging from things like George Washington's spurs at Valley Forge that he loaned to a soldier in an effort to get an emergency message out, all the way up to Jackie Robinson's baseball bat and moon rocks. We also, though, are creating a panel exhibit for communities throughout the state so that organizations can serve communities who can't necessarily make it to History Colorado Center in the summer, but who also will have an opportunity to customize that for their local communities around some programming ideas. What's really exciting about that is that we are actually partnering with our state partners throughout the West. So Washington, Idaho, Utah, Arizona, they are all going to be offering a similar packaging to their communities throughout their states. We're looking at revamping historic markers. We are working with the Colorado Film Office on a series of educational films that educators can use in their classrooms, complete with some guiding materials that they can use, an online exhibit specific to Colorado statehood that is accompanied with teacher professional development days and stipends for those teachers so that they can then further use those in their classrooms. But the big piece of this is that in conversations with communities around the state, they all say, this is all well and good. This is great. We already have programs planned. Are you asking me to create another program? Certainly not. We know that a lot of this good work is already happening, and so simply aligning the programs that you already have going on is equally valid to creating new programs. And because we are hopeful to see new programs, we have also partnered with 6 major foundations in Colorado, ranging from Anschutz Foundation to El Pomar to Daniels, and several more. And we've secured $5.5 million in pledges from them for community organizations, so tribal entities, tribal governments, governmental agencies, as well as 501c3s, can access those dollars that they've pledged in order to see this type of programming happen throughout the state. We also are going to be hosting an online events calendar in which any and all event that does both of those things or any one of those things, commemorate or celebrate, can be inputted onto that calendar. And our logo, which you, I think, hopefully got stickers, I see one here, that is free for you to use. You do not owe any royalties. Anyone can access that. You have access to all of the digital files. And I know Colorado Tourism is very hopeful to see that those existing events certainly are branded around 250, 150. There is a national organization, I don't know if you've heard, but America 250 was also created by bipartisan support on a national level. And they very much are looking to highlight the statewide efforts that are happening. And what we are hopeful to see is that on this national map, that Colorado is just blowing it out of the water at all points. So I have just talked a whole lot more than I typically like to, but I wanted to make sure that you had all of the details here. I will share these slides. I'm sure you already have them, and I can share them later, but some of the tools that we have put into place and the resources range from city proclamations, just simply as awareness building, to just declare your intent to participate with this. We have a community toolkit. Again, the logo use and details are there. And the last thing that I will mention is that, in having these conversations around the state, I have heard that there are capital campaigns afoot. People are curious. Yes, you can apply for some of those funding dollars for capital campaigns. But, simply marking that as a moment in time is certainly something that is interesting as well. CTO is hopeful to see these types of things happen. I know that when I wander around, I often see things on a park marker that says, 1976. It is really no accident that you see those quite often around the state because people did mark that moment in time as creating something new or interesting for their communities. And with that, I'm happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Any questions from council? Councilmember Jaramillo?
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and thank you for this awesome, efforts you guys are making, collaborating with the, entire United States. Like, this is huge, and I think we're really lucky to be our 150th coming up. So, yeah. So since you're with History Colorado Museum, will you be? So I know you mentioned like some artifacts and stuff like that, but will you be doing like some art exhibitions with different organizations that are here in Denver or Colorado?
It's a really great question. And yes, so a number of our initiatives live with History Colorado, specifically those that have to do with exhibitions. So that Moments That Made Us and 38th Star, which looks at statehood. Yes, those are housed at History Colorado. Our 8 community locations throughout the state are also looking at standing up their own exhibitions. But really the goal here is that we are working together, communicating with various cultural organizations throughout the state, encouraging them to either both align or create that existing programming. Did that answer the question?
It did,
Okay,
and
great.
I was wondering, like, you kind of, we're starting to get to it, but is there possibilities for public art installations, things like that?
Interestingly, yes. So Aurora, I don't know if you saw it, but they just put out a call to artists. It sounds like you're familiar. For a new major public art piece that they are planning to install in 2026, specifically for the sesquicentennial, or if you're feeling sometimes like I am, just the 250, 150. So yes, we are hearing about that throughout the state. And I think it's a phenomenal opportunity. Again, we like to acknowledge that there are things and programs we've always wanted to do. This may be that moment that maybe galvanize and energize a community around it. So I do know that things like that are happening. We have talked with Colorado Creative Industries, which lives under OEdit. As far as I've heard, they're all in, and they are interested in helping to message this out through to cultural districts throughout the state, hopeful to see those types of programs.
Great, and since you talked about cultural districts, have you talked to SCFD?
Not yet, and I'd love a connection if you have one. That'd be great.
Yeah, there's it's a great opportunity. I feel that
Yeah,
it would really work out well.
that would be
I'm
wonderful.
glad you're already thinking about it.
Yeah, we've really been approaching a lot of the major organizations throughout the state, so happy to be here. Mayor Leidy and I were introduced at a recent presentation to Denver Metro Mayor's Caucus. I just recently presented to Colorado Municipal League, and we're hoping to just continue to be on the radars of, the Leadership for American Legion, or, any of the military and veterans communities and those organizations. So as you are connected to those, if there's an opportunity that you see to certainly connect on these things, I will be forwarding as part of the resources, links to even an email template that you're welcome to copy and paste that has information rather than, trying to boil all of this down. Happy to provide all of that.
Well, great. Thank you for all your work.
Absolutely.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Councilmember Burns?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I just want to say thank you so much for this presentation. And I also really appreciate the free logo usage. As someone who works in the digital space in my daytime life, I understand what a valuable piece of item this is. And so speaking of digital, is there anything else on that front y'all are looking to do from social media presence or anything like that?
Yeah, great question. So we have engaged the services of Philosophy Communication, which is a Denver-based PR firm. By accessing, number one, the community toolkit, I think when I say that often, even myself, I assume it's just a PDF of FAQs and how-tos. I really do want to clarify that it is almost like a living document, so they continue to drop in their social media sample posts, imagery that you can take and use and adopt for your own purposes. I'm going through the process for a number of the photos that you see here. History Colorado received John Fielder's entire digital collection. Also in nonprofit purposes, he wanted to see that go to the people of Colorado, and so we're choosing I know it's incredible, a select group of photos that tie into our visual branding to make that available to communities to use at no cost, free letterhead, things like that. And so especially as we continue to go with these signature initiatives and we have opportunities such as, do you have a community marker that you would like to submit around history that happened here? All of those details will be dropped into that toolkit as well. So when and if you do access it, I would recommend just continuing to check back. We put the date on it of when it was most recently updated, and a lot of those pieces around social media and things will continue to happen. We're talking about some fun things too. In 1976, there was a beard growing competition. Maybe that will make an appearance on social media again. I don't know. So yes, please do feel free to follow us. We have presence on LinkedIn, YouTube, Facebook, and Instagram. And we're encouraging communities to use the hashtags that are detailed in our community toolkit as well.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Councilmember Kondo.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Thank you for the presentation. Just a few thoughts. Certainly more than happy to connect you with the American Legion here in North Glen.
Thank you.
So if I can receive your contact information, I would appreciate that greatly. I think you just mentioned this, is that you are reaching out to the First Nation tribes to make sure that they're being represented. I wonder if you can talk a little bit more to that.
Yeah, absolutely. So we, in our commission has grown several times. In its original iteration, Southern Ute and Ute Mountain Ute tribes were both represented. Southern Ute Council member Vanessa Torres was on our commission for a short time. She did have to resign just due to her overwhelming amount of work. And so we now have Council member Linda Baker for Southern Ute. Ute Mountain Ute tribe, we have yet to have a commissioner, but as they are a sovereign nation, they certainly are in charge when and if they choose to appoint a commissioner. But we do keep them regularly updated. Recently, through having a TIPO officer presenting and attending meetings. That person has recently moved out of state. And so we still are looking to find the best contact for Ute Mountain Ute. As our commission grew, we understood and knew that we needed to have some other representation because History Colorado does celebrate and acknowledge the 53 tribes with historic ties to Colorado. And so recently, Ms. Grace Gillette, Executive Director of Denver Powwow, joined the commission. She was appointed by Governor Polis, as was Stephen LaPointe, who owns First Tribal Consulting. So it looks like some people are familiar, perhaps, with those two. And so we do have those representatives on the commission, and they are doing quite a lot of outreach throughout those communities as well. The commission last year hosted a series of listening sessions with urban Native communities, specifically in Denver, looking then to launch that out statewide through the new commissioners who were recently appointed.
Gotcha, thank you. And then my last comment, obviously this is a very festive and positive sort of thing. I would assume there's an opportunity to reflect on maybe less glamorous things that might have happened in our history, whether it's some of the things that happened with the Japanese internment camps or the massacres that happened. I'm assuming that this is also an opportunity to acknowledge that less savory sort of things happen in our history, and we should not forget those things.
Absolutely. And I will tell you very honestly that if this had just been a situation in which we were only celebrating but not really acknowledging and diving deeper into the other areas of our history, I would not have applied for this job. So that truly was built into it. The pieces of our legislation that I'm very happy that we can lean on specifically do call out that this commission will be responsible for creating new historical documents and new publications and opportunities for new scholarship. So specifically within History Colorado, one of our signature initiatives is the expansion of entries into the Colorado Encyclopedia, which, if you're not familiar, is a little like the Colorado Wikipedia, owned and operated by History Colorado. What we're hoping to do in those cases is deep tribal work, specifically for co-authorship on writing those histories that are missing. But they have been doing quite a deep dive into identifying which communities are underrepresented or misrepresented in that as well. Colorado Heritage for All is another one of our signature initiatives that I'm realizing now I may have missed on my list. That is an effort to add 150 sites to the state register, specifically representing communities who have previously been marginalized. For those of you who are unfamiliar, if you are not on the Colorado Register of Historic Places, you do not have access to State Historic Fund grant dollars for preservation. So History Colorado has undertaken that effort. Communities can nominate nominate sites. I'm happy to send those details as well because no one knows the communities best than the people who represent them. And so what we're doing there is quite a lot of outreach into communities, but also to build that knowledge around why these places are specifically important. And truly, I think, commissioners, I can speak on their behalf in saying that they are looking at this whole picture very seriously, and they understand that this is very much, these are two sides of the same commemoration. I have colleagues at History Colorado who are very much looking at this from their position as something to mourn. And I don't think that that's anything that we are looking to shy away from, that it truly is a combination of the two things, because we can't do one without the other. And we have to at least acknowledge one and dive into what that looks like in order to come together as community.
Gotcha. Thank you. I'm glad that it is a fair and balanced. I know it's a
Yep.
very fine line that you're walking. So I thank you for doing that.
Absolutely.
Mayor Pro Tem?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Thank you so much for this presentation. I'm really excited with all the celebrations and the acknowledgements that are to come. It's a big year. I was just wondering, have you worked with the DAR, the local chapter, the Daughters of the American Revolution, because they're planning a huge 250 event. They also work closely with Native American communities as well, just because of the history, of course, as Councilmember Kondo mentioned. So I was just wondering.
It's a great question, and thank you for it. We have been in contact with the Sons of the American Revolution. They're very interested in getting involved with some of those local efforts. One thing that I didn't mention is that these local organizing committees that are really forming throughout the state, representative of many, many organizations and institutions locally. The Sons of the American Revolution specifically are very deeply tied into those LOCs, we call them. Daughters of the American Revolution, we had a communication pretty early on, and they had mentioned to me, some of their really exciting plans, but I have not yet really heard back from them. So if you have a connection, I would love to follow up with them to find out where things are and make sure that they know certainly about our designs here as well.
I absolutely do have a contact.
That would
I'm a
be
member of the
fantastic.
Front Range chapter, so
Great.
I can absolutely put you back in
Yeah.
touch with someone and have them
That would
follow
be
up.
fantastic. I think I maybe caught them as there was some transition in leadership, and because this is such a big program, I can definitely see where we would have lost touch.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you for being here.
Yeah,
So I
thank
had
you.
a couple other questions because I'm looking, in the memo is the website to
Mm-hmm.
the History Colorado page, the landing site for all of this information. And I'm noticing, like, do we just need to come back to it regularly on our own? Because it's not really going to kick off until about a year from now.
So we're doing regular press releases. So stay tuned for those. We also do have those all listed on our website. For example, one of the latest was an invitation for businesses and organizations to begin planning for this on their own. But we also just recently announced details on the passport program. Some of the upcoming ones will be more focused on those calls to action. Here's specifically how you get involved with item A, B, and C. So I would stay tuned on those. For me, it's pretty easy to keep track of what we're looking at by setting a Google alert. That may be a good way to do it. But yes, I'm happy to also continue to stay in touch.
Okay, so, and the digital passport program I thought was fascinating. So are details coming out?
Details are
or-
coming, yes.
Okay.
Yes, Colorado Tourism is really hoping that that communities from around the state will nominate their own sites in order to be considered for passport sites on there. There will be several themes within the passport, so restaurant theme, cultural attraction theme, state park theme, I would assume is going to be one.
Okay. Well, and I saw that there's accessibility through the My Colorado app, and I wasn't sure if everyone had that. I think it's very, very cool.
Yes.
That's where I keep all my things. So I just thought that was an interesting connection. And then the educational materials for educators.
Yes.
Is that going to be for the fall, or is that a
It will be
year from now?
in 2026. Yes, so it's a great question. The educational film series we anticipate will be available to teachers very likely fall of 2026. But that's one of those legacy programs where we hope that teachers and educators can use that throughout. And then the 38th Star, that online exhibit specific to, I believe it will be mostly around 4th grade. We will start releasing details on that around those teacher professional development days. I would anticipate those will be happening in the early winter of 2026.
Okay.
And very likely available to educators before the end of that 2025-2026 school year.
Okay, that's awesome. Then I know in the memo, Diana, do you want to share? There was a staff recommendation in the memo that attached to this presentation that had a staff recommendation. Do you want to share more about that?
Thank you, Council, for allowing me to jump in real quick. We've been having some discussions, not only in my department, but also in Parks, Recreation, and Culture. DAR has reached out to us. They have some banners that they'd be willing to fund that they'd like to see displayed in some way. So we're trying to juggle the different aspects of what the state's doing, how we might partner with people locally. So our first suggestion that we're working on is, because the 2026 budget's coming up, is to do a drone show at a State of the City event. Instead of doing it on, we'll have our traditional 4th of July fireworks as long as you okay that, but we thought a drone show during the State of the City and making that more of a 150, 250 might be a nice theme. We also thought a local video asking people that were here in 1976 what they remember it being like, and you doing those things like how much the average car cost, how much the average house cost, how much money people made, you know, our population then, that kind of stuff. Centennial Park has a time capsule, and they plan to reach out to the DAR actually and come up with something surrounding the time capsule that's at Centennial Park. Appropriate name, obviously. And then our Historic Commission, we really need to look at our partnerships, whether that's not only the DAR, but our own commission and veterans groups, I think are really people we need to talk to see how they'd like to be involved in our events next year. And I really think it's probably smarter to incorporate those things into our events that we're already having, as she said, and using that as a theme, specifically for July 4th and specifically for State of the City. We are looking at the possibility of doing a larger event at Centennial Park, which we'll be bringing to you later in June. But my thought is we should tie in the opening of the box, what is it called again? Yes, thank you. Time capsule. I have a hard time with that word. I'm not really sure why. So that we'd have a large audience and it would be a little bit more exciting for people to all see it together. And then, of course, follow their page. So those are the things that we've been throwing around so far. If there's anything in particular you think of that you're like, be really cool if we could incorporate this into something we already do, or you'd rather have a standalone event, we're open to all ideas. For us, it's just getting a good handle on the bigger picture so that we can get it all submitted in the 2026 budget process.
Great, which is why it was great timing for you to come well ahead
definitely.
of that, so we can get some more information. And I don't know if I missed it, is there funding available for events and activities, or no?
Yes, I mean, I would say that it's a pretty large umbrella that the foundations have asked us to, seek program descriptions around. So events, programs, exhibitions, I think there's a large number of items that they're willing to consider. Our website, because we are not, a grant-making entity, that's why we have partnered with these foundations. They will be giving the grants directly, but on our website, just simply submitting a 150-character description of the project and then a short description of the population that's served. Commissioners will then weigh that against a rubric. That said, we are not withholding anything. We want the foundations to see every program description that comes through because they may find things that are very interesting to them. So we're really excited about those. I do want to mention also that our PR team is planning newsletters and monthly roundups around highlighting the really exciting things that are happening. So hearing about, a time capsule from 1976 being opened, I would certainly recommend putting those things on our events calendar because they are going to be finding those gems and just, spreading it around across the state. I would imagine people in the region, not only just Northglenn specifically, would be interested in something like that.
There are a ton of resources on this website, although I can't find where a grant application would go.
It should be on the homepage or under Get Involved, funding opportunities. So be planning around your timing because commissioners are reviewing these on a really regular basis. We are not waiting until the end of that cycle. They have just reviewed their first round. But be planning for those larger foundation timelines because once they inform, for example, North Glen about interest in receiving the full application, then you are at the mercy of their longer timeline. And so I would say if you already have ideas about things that may or may not be happening coming up in 2026, the sooner the better.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you. Councilmember Kondo?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I was just brainstorming on that, and obviously, hopefully in 2026, we'll be certifying this building as a core building, first municipal core building. So I often wonder if that might be a notable event that would be worth putting on the radar screen.
Yeah, we'll see. Lots of ideas.
It's amazing. Well,
It's very
thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it.
Thank you for being here.
Yeah, thank you. And I will give Diana all the information and the resources that you may need to follow up, including my contact info.
Perfect.
So thank you.
Thanks. All right, moving into council communications. Councilmember Burns?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Not too much to report out because we reported out last week. The CCPP met. I missed because of childcare, but you can watch the video online. It was a pretty easy meeting. They talked about all of the different events that they're going to try and participate in this year.
Okay.
Thank you.
Councilmember Walker?
Thank you. Thank you. Excuse me. Thank you. And thanks to all the staff, all the way from the park rangers down to the directors who made Food Truck Carnivals a success. And thank you to all the residents who came out as well. And given the proclamation tonight, I'd like to plug the city's gun safe rebate program, which will cover up to 35% of a gun safe that meets our requirements. And it is a nod to our city's commitment to promote safety. Thank you.
Thank you for bringing that up. Councilmember Jaramillo?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Yeah, I wanted to agree with, echo everything that Councilmember Walker just mentioned. The Food Truck Carnival is awesome event, great success. It was great to see. I have friends and family members that came from all over town to come here to North Glen, and they're just telling us how wonderful the event is, that they enjoy it every single year. They really loved our new city hall, so it's really cool to bring people here to our city and really enjoy, a peaceful time together. So also on Wednesday, May 14th, I attended the Adcock Sub-Regional Transportation Forum online, and I agreed to collaborate with Councilmember Martinez on City of Thornton, and also their staff, Kent Mormon, as well as our Director of Planning, and that's Brooks Favoda here. So we're going to be working together. It's called the 4P process for CDOT, and we're going to be prioritizing the US 36 to 104th project. So it's going to be having improvements that include, wider shoulders, more continuous lanes, entering and exiting I-25 from 104th to Highway 36. So we'll be doing that presentation on June 11th, and that's in front of CDOT, as I mentioned. So it's been a long time coming to have this opportunity, so we're going to take full advantage of it and work together regionally to make sure that it happens. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Goff?
Thank you, Mayor. So May 16th, the CC4CA, the Colorado Communities for Climate Action, I should say, Executive Committee met. It's probably my last time to be on that committee since I'm the immediate past president, and they selected a new slate of officers to be voted on later this summer, and that'll probably be my last chance to be considered an officer of that organization. But one of the things that we talked quite a bit about is our annual meeting. Some of the things that we're going to be looking into is they have 3 themes, and one of them was called collective defense, and they were a little bit worried about the defensive word being too defensive, but there's not a good one to come up with. And that goal there was to defend existing laws and regulations at the federal level and defend against federal attempts to usurp our state and local authority related to climate action. So we'll be working on that as a whole group, which makes it a lot, hopefully a lot more effective. It's certainly a lot easier to do as a group. And then another theme was the March to 2040, which, you know, in Colorado has a whole bunch of climate goals that the state is hoping to achieve by 2040. And so there'll be some discussions and some initiatives to help support local governments and the state to achieve those goals. And then the last one is just kind of more of it's called Local Governments and Collective Climate Action. And it just has to do with maybe looking at what we've done successfully in the past and how to continue that in the future in light of changing policies. So that was on the 16th. And then I did two days at the Food Truck Carnival. On Saturday, May 17th, was with the with the dice board table. We did like some community outreach and a lot of stories about people coming from, you know, all over the state really to our Food Truck Carnival, which we've heard about how that's such a big draw. And then people were also excited and saying wonderful things about North Glen and all the events we have, and looking forward to Pride and the Juneteenth festivals next month. And they did have a couple tell me that they love North Glen Pride. That's where their daughter met her wife a few years ago. So that was a very heartwarming story. And then on May 18th, I worked for a while, which I'm some of our other council members have as well, to raise funds for the North Glen Community Foundation. The weather was a little iffy. I'm hoping we did really well anyway, but it's just such a wonderful event, and I just encourage anyone who has not been able to make it to the Food Truck Carnival, even if you're maybe not so much into carnival rides, the food truck stuff is fun, the bands are fun, you meet lots of great people. So I would encourage anyone to come out for that. And then I just wanted to echo all the sentiments we heard about our gun violence awareness proclamation. To me, it's just a terrible tragedy of the young people and children, very young people in our country that are being killed every day by gun violence. And so the Gun Safe program, please take advantage of that. Make sure that you do your best to keep our children safe. And that's it. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Kondo.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I too would like to recognize staff as well as North Metro Fire, which was present at the Food Truck Carnival. And I also want to give out a shout to Councilmember Walker and his better half, Miss Katie, who also helped out on Friday while I was there, also checking IDs and handing out drink tokens. I don't know if anybody else was there doing that job. I saw you on Sunday, Dr. Goff, so thank you for doing that. Other late-breaking news, North Metro had their election, and I'm happy to say that in Jenny Murphy's place, we will have a North Glen resident who will be representing one of the board members besides myself. So 2 out of the 5 will be North Glen, and that is James Hiramasa. So if you see Mr. Hiramasa, please give him congratulations. And then lastly, this weekend, I feel like it was a roller coaster ride. I mean, there was the highs of the Food Truck Carnival, but I will tell you one of the lows that I had personally was a ride-along that I did with Station 65, which is at the Rocky Mountain Regional Airport. I was there on Saturday, and you probably saw the incident that occurred on the news. And I will tell you that in the line of work of public service, whether you're a police officer or you're a firefighter, paramedic, you can never really fully understand the kinds of things that they have to go through watching people have their worst days in their lives. And I saw that firsthand. And it was impressive, if you will, to see how multiple agencies could come together, because the accident site actually occurred in Boulder County. So you had Broomfield Police there, you had Boulder County there, North Metro Fire, NTSB, FAA, and also the Rocky Mountain Regional Airport people. And so sadly, we were not able to rescue those passengers, the pilot and the passenger. But to see how well everybody came together in that moment of crisis and to be able to respond very effectively and efficiently was quite impressive for me. And I think, if anything, it just really underscores how important it is to support our public safety operators, whether it's police or fire. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Councilmember Roper?
Nothing to report. Thank you.
Mayor Pro Tem?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Thank you, Councilmember Kondo, for stating that. I agree with that 100%. Very tragic event that took place with the plane crash. I really didn't have a whole lot going on. It was a short week. I attended the CML District 3 meeting, which was pretty much all of us in District 3 just reporting out on things that are happening in our areas, and legislative update, which we received last week as well. So that is it. Thank you.
Great, thank you. I have a couple things just as well. I had my coffee with the mayor at Stonehawker on Saturday, and while it was another small event, they're becoming my favorite things. It's very nice to bring out residents that don't typically attend these things. I met two brand new couples, new to the city, had a lot of questions. We were able to share a lot of the upcoming events we have. We talked about the goats coming up, making sure they knew about that. They were also excited about the food truck carnival and had invited some friends to join them. So intimate coffees have been really beneficial to learning about, you know, the concerns of our residents, and took a small, quick little poll, and they think moving it around instead of keeping it in the same location is actually preferred, because it encourages people to come to places that they've never been, because the residents that joined us had never been to the Stonehawker farmhouse. And so that was really fun. There was also, the Butterfly Pavilion was there, and there was a free plant giveaway on that same property, and it was very, very busy. So that was fun. I just want to make sure residents know that on Thursday we have our Public Works open house from 4 to 7 at the water treatment facility. Please attend that. It's very fun. There's a lot of activities for kids and families, and you get to learn a lot. You will learn a lot about our water and wastewater and how it all works. So I highly encourage you if you have never done that. And then this is just information for council. I will be attending the U.S. Conference of Mayors annual meeting in June, partly because I'm part of the Climate Mayors, and we will be meeting as well. And because of that, I did not go to NLC in March, and I also will not go in November due to the cost of the Climate Mayors meeting. So, and CML is also coming up. So just want to make sure everyone's aware of that commitment and the work that I will be doing. Questions for staff? How's the clerk's office going? Any updates?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I have nothing to report.
Well, thank you for being here.
You're welcome. Said other than being a totally different face.
Yeah, no, it's lovely. We're happy to have you. Join us anytime.
Yeah, we'll see. Thanks.
Acting City Manager Loveland, what do you got?
I was unable to attend the food truck carnival, but I just want to give a shout out to all of the staff and volunteers from the different boards, commissions, council members as well, for making it such a wonderful event and a great light on the city of North Glen. So that is all I have. Thank you.
Thank you. City Attorney Hoffman?
Good evening, Madam Mayor, members of council. I do not have anything to report tonight.
Great, thank you. Councilmember Kondo, you have something to add?
Yes, Madam Mayor. One other thing I observed at the Food Truck Carnival is the new barrier system that we authorized about 3 or 4 months ago. It was really impressive to see it. I think that was the first time we deployed it. And if I understood correctly, talking with some of our police officers, it actually helped to reduce the number of people that had to be on call manning these checkpoints. So nice that we're investing in infrastructure and making it so that we're more efficient with our people. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Great, thank you. Moving to the consent agenda, is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
Please open the vote.
The vote is open. I will close the vote. The consent agenda passes unanimously.
Thank you. All right, resolution CR 45. Will the clerk please read the title?
A resolution approving an intergovernmental agreement between Adams County and the cities of Arvada, North Glen, Federal Heights, Thornton, Commerce City and Westminster regarding the Adams County Community Transit Program.
Move for
Motion
approval.
to approve. Seconded. If-
Thank you. Our Director of Parks, Recreation, and Culture, Amanda Peterson, is here. Good evening.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. So the resolution before you tonight is a renewal of the IGA between Adams County and the cities, as were mentioned in the title. The A-Lift, or the Transit Policy Council, provides rides to individuals aged 65 and older, or those with mobility impairments that have a door-through-door service. And that is a really unique component compared to other paratransit that exists in the county. That door-through-door service really provides a higher level of service, allowing assistance all the way from putting a coat on inside an individual's home, getting into a vehicle, taking that vehicle to a doctor's appointment, being walked inside to the doctor's appointment, and checking in. So very different than what other services we have to offer. Those services are provided, again, in partnership with federal funding through DRCOG. The agreement that's before you tonight is very similar to what we have authorized in the past. There are three primary changes with that. One, we have provided consistency between each of the cities. In the past, we've had an individual agreement between each city and Adams County. This time we are proposing that there's one agreement signed by all of those entities so that there's not little tiny differences from one to the next, even just in formatting. The second change is changing the term to every 5 year, doing a renewal every 5 years instead of annually. And then the third is a requirement for Adams County to coordinate with DRCOG. When we talked to you it was sometime last year, there's now a hybrid model in place. Previously, we had a fully local control model where the county hired the provider directly. VIA is our service provider right now. That provider is currently hired by DRCOG with local match funding from Adams County. So there's still a memorandum of understanding in place between the county and VIA as that transit provider to meet the standards that we expect for that local match, those local match dollars. But it's done in coordination with DRCOG, who holds the primary contract. So we wanted to make sure that this agreement acknowledged that difference. I'd be happy to answer any questions that you may have tonight.
Councilmember Goff.
Thank you. So you might not know this kind of a detail, but do you have any sense of how long someone might have to wait to, like, let's say someone wants to call for this ride? Is there a huge demand, not enough drivers? How does that, I mean?
There is definitely a huge demand, and more demand than there's service available. However, we are keeping in very close connection with VIA through the Transit Policy Council to encourage them to manage their wait list. The county is taking an additional step of making contact with individuals who are on that wait list to try to decrease their time, find alternate ride opportunities. We did hear that just this last month, 11 individuals from North Glen were removed from the wait list and moved into service. So that was a promising number from VIA. And then the county has developed a voucher program. And so for those individuals, it doesn't provide a door-through-door service, but for those individuals who need a more urgent ride and are physically able, they can provide them with a voucher and connection for Lyft or Uber rides as well. You're welcome.
Councilmember Kondo.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. And thank you, Director Peterson, for answering my email on Friday morning as everything's starting to wrap up for the Food Truck Carnival. And I appreciate the clarity that you brought to me, because I think I conflated two different programs. You have the A-Lift, which is the county, and then you had Access-A-Ride, which is
RTD.
RTD. Thank you, Madam Mayor. So if it's okay, I'd like to just share your response with the rest of the days, because it's
certainly.
I think it helped once I read your language. It really clarified a great deal for me. And I get it that the lead time is 1 week in advance, but when you described to me at the carnival that it's door to door, literally, and as well as maybe even walking the person inside the house, that finally made sense to me. So appreciate that clarity.
You're welcome.
Great, thank you. I don't see any other comments, so
All
thank you
right.
so much.
Thank you.
Please open the vote.
The vote is open. I will close the vote, and CR 45 passes unanimously.
Thank you. Discussion item tonight, the Unified Development Ordinance, otherwise known as the UDO Amendment for Natural Medicine. Hello, Director of Planning and Development, Brooks Svoboda is here to present this item.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Good to be in front of you tonight. So in the memo, we'll point out that this is a follow-up to some legal correspondence that Council received back in January regarding natural medicine uses. We'll point out that this is similar to, but not exactly like marijuana, in which the state, in this particular instance, is doing all the licensing. There will be no duplicitous licensing with the city. So what staff looked at is to take an approach similar to the same time and place and manner restrictions that we put in for marijuana, but without the licensing process. And so what we're really here tonight is just to get consensus if that is an appropriate approach, and if so, we would bring this forward through our standard public hearing process before the Planning Commission and City Council. I will note that we have not had any formal applications or requests for this. One last note for this is that if under our current regulations, we would consider this a medical clinic, and so it would be allowed in mixed-use zoning districts. Here, what we're doing is we're limited to the 3 zoning districts that currently marijuana licensing is allowed based on space and distance requirements from schools and other uses. So with that, I'm happy to open up any questions, but really tonight it's just a discussion to see if this is an appropriate approach or if council would like to consider anything else. Corey is also here to help speak to this and answer any questions that you guys may have.
And the only thing I would add is the direction we received at the previous discussion was to bring back basically the best time, place, and manner restrictions we could come up with while still not having the effect of excluding these type of businesses in a manner that would go too far under state law. And so that's what we hope we have presented to you tonight.
Okay. Questions or discussion from council?
And I think from our perspective, a thumbs up means it would go through the hearing process, which means it would go to Planning Commission and then back to you.
Thank you. Councilmember Kondo.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I would be in favor of taking it to the next step, but while I have the nickel, I would like to ask Brooke, the Director Svoboda, the last page, the map, if you could help me decipher that just a little bit. Obviously, this is for marijuana dispensaries.
Yep.
But the thing that was interesting to me was just, were there some dispensaries that were grandfathered just because perhaps maybe they existed there before, say, for example, a child care building was placed in a location? So specifically number 3, for example.
Yep. I don't know the specifics to that. This was really intended to be, do you know the answer, Corey?
No, but again, your point's well taken that the distance limitations only apply when the business is approved. And so if something else moves in during that time, that does not impact the approval.
Okay, yep, that's kind of what I was thinking might have happened in the case of number 3. Marijuana dispenser.
So back to that question, are you thinking that the number 3 marijuana license is within 500 feet of a daycare?
Yeah, I mean, it looks awfully close, and I was just wondering if, if it was a grandfather sort of situation in that particular
Do you know if that is true?
instance.
I don't know off the top. We'd have to go back and verify. I think one of the challenges that we have on the staff level is like daycares move in to different places all the time.
Yeah.
And so staying on top of that and making sure that we're getting good data to reflect that. I think the purpose of this was to graphically depict what the state of the world looks like today with these time, place, and limitation requirements. They could change, they could they could expand or contract based on the types of uses. But I think, moreover, I think with the schools and the other uses that we have listed, it helps create a fairly reasonable buffer. But those daycares and those types of uses are variable because it can move around. And that's something that we will be tracking as we go forward with our GIS on that, to make sure that we're honoring that too.
Okay. Councilmember Jaramillo?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I just wanted to clarify with Councilmember Kondo, that is no longer a daycare facility at that location. No, it's no longer. So, moving forward, I'd say, yes, let's move forward with number 7. Thank you.
Yeah, does everyone feel okay with it? Okay. Thumbs up for Corey.
Sorry, this is just speaking from the licensing perspective because that's obviously my primary job. So the way that the language is written is that it's licensed daycares through the state. So there are daycares that do not have to go through the licensure process. They're exempt or they choose not to for whatever reason. We pull a list from the state's daycare licensing, and that's the data that we use. So it's very likely, I pulled it just a few weeks ago for Murphy, and it's very likely that these were added well after these businesses existed.
Okay. Thank you for that clarification. Okay, well, it looks like you have approval.
We have our
for-
direction.
Yes.
So likely what we'll be looking at is probably a July-August timeframe for going through the amendment process with the Plan Commission, then coming back to you for first and second read.
Okay.
All right, thank you.
Appreciate it.
Yep.
Public invited to be heard. I'm not going to bother reading all the things because there is no one left. But I appreciate everyone who was here. Thank you to staff. There being no further business, we are adjourned.